I'm Shainul from Fortune Law. If you're an entrepreneur or a founder or a startup, you will be finding yourself in one of the most challenging times of your business career. So today I'm going to give you some legal tips and things that you should be thinking about in order to survive this crisis. So the first thing I would say is look at your business disaster recovery plan. Think about what actually is your business. What are the products that you are providing, all the services that you are delivering, and what do you need or what did you need in order to deliver those? I'm talking about customers, suppliers, team, premises, contracts, intellectual property, your routes to market. What were those? What did they look like? Can you replicate those in the new normal and the world to come? Or do you need to reposition yourself totally currently or also in the future? So think about those things and actually understand what your business was, what it currently is, and what you want it to look like and what it can look like going forward. The second thing I would say is look at team. Now, as we all know in a business, team is your biggest asset. But without customers, what requirement is there for team? Is there a reduced requirement? Is there no requirement? Is there an increased requirement? Businesses are all going through different things. And for example, in hospitality, there is a vastly reduced need for team. But in companies who are providing essential services or food, there is a much greater demand. So the requirement for team is different. What is your requirement for team? Do you need your team to be working longer hours? Do you need them to be working on different projects? Do you have less requirement for team? Do you have employees who are shielding? Do you have employees who are vulnerable? Do you have employees with childcare responsibilities? Do you have employees that you currently don't need at the moment? And if so, can you then rely on the government's furlough scheme? But think about your team. Think about their employment contracts. Think about whether or not you need to vary those employment contracts, whether it's salary reduction, whether it's change in holiday requirements, whether you're furloughing. And think about how you're going to best communicate with your team, because that is essential right now. If you're redeploying your staff, find out what their skill set is. You may find yourself in a situation where you are using skills that belong to your employees, that they are sharing with your business, that you would never ever have had the opportunity to discover had it not been for this current crisis. And think about their well-being. It is very challenging to try and manage a remote team. It is very challenging to be learning new skills. It is very challenging not to have those water cooler moments. It is very challenging not to have that social interaction. But they are your team. They are your responsibility still, even if you can't always see them. The third thing I would say is make sure you look at how you're working. And when I say how you're working, I'm talking primarily about IT and systems. And I'm talking about websites and I'm talking about online selling. So number one, talk to your IT providers. What do you need? What systems have you got in place for remote working? Are these systems safe? Are they compliant with the law? What data is out there? What information do your team members who may be using their own IT, who may be using their own laptops and their own telephones, what data have they got on your clients and customers? And how do you protect that data and make sure you're compliant? Also, is this the time to be investing in different types of IT and hardware? Should you be looking at going completely into the cloud? Should you be really looking at reinvesting or investing in hardware which is sort of less flexible, or should you be looking at laptops for everybody, for example? What policies do you need to put in place? Are you changing your business model? Were you selling in a more traditional way? Are you now looking at selling online? What does your website need to be doing? You need to make sure that your terms and conditions for online sales, for remote selling, for distance selling are compliant. So have a look at those. Think about how your business model is changing and how you need the internet, Wi-Fi, the cloud, website, online terms, and other considerations that you would need to think about if you're changing that business model. The next thing I would talk to you about is that you look at your physical space if you have it. So if you were working in an office, if you were working in a restaurant, if you were working in physical space, but you are no longer in that physical space, what do your contractual terms say? How long do they go on for? Is there any room for manoeuvre? And how do you terminate those arrangements if you no longer need them or they're not fit for purpose? So have a look at your lease. Have a look at your serviced office contract and see what those key terms look like, whether it's the rent, whether there's going to be a rent review, whether or not you're bound to be within that contract for a short period of time or a much longer period of time. Is there a break clause that you can benefit from? What are the notice periods? That's a really important one, because sometimes you can just forego a benefit by forgetting that you've got to actually give notice on a particular date in a prescribed way. So have a look at that. But also think about negotiation. This is a great time for a business in terms of learning the skills of negotiation. Find out whether or not you can negotiate a rental holiday. Find out whether or not you can actually ask for a reduced rent. Find out whether or not they're willing to carry on providing benefits and services or not. You may find they have obligations that they're not complying with at this moment in time. And it's a good time to be looking and talking to each other and saying, hang on a minute, it's not working out for us, it's not working out for you. How do we try and find something that works for both of us? Because it's in both parties' interests for that relationship to continue. So talking, communicating, dialogue, negotiation. The next thing I would say for you to look at is your insurance. Now, most businesses will probably think, and they may be right in thinking, that they cannot claim on their insurance for COVID-19. And there are so many businesses who wouldn't have that cover, who wouldn't have the cover of pandemic included in their business cover. So, there are some companies and some businesses, for example, Wimbledon, who did have that included in their business cover and therefore can rely and claim on their insurance. But have a look at your insurance policy and find out what the cover is that's included in that. But also critically find out what your obligations are under that policy. If you're not in your physical premises, does your insurance get impacted? Do you have to notify your insurance provider that you're not in your physical building? What's going to happen to the assets that you've got in that building? Whether it's equipment or documentation or IT, what happens if it's furniture? Are those protected if you're not physically there? Is there security manning that building? Have a look at what your obligations are and have a look at what your insurer's obligations are also. And finally, what I would say is hold on to your business community and your network. There has never been a greater time for you to be reaching out to the people in your network, whether they're in the same area of business as you are or they're in a completely different area of business, because this is the time to speak, to support each other, to help each other, to share ideas, to share knowledge and be of support to each other. So working together, you can build a better business. Thank you for watching. I hope you find that helpful.